We really position ourselves as a solution provider that is helping to connect traditional media brands with the way that viewers are now consuming content. And we're trying to do that, the way that we like to put it, is on a massive scale. And I think it's fair to say that over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen that the early work that was done, some of the early adopters in the market, whether they be folks like HBO, ESPN, whatnot, have really been predictive of what has become mainstream. And we really do believe that we are at the center of doing that in terms of helping that content get to all devices beyond the TV set as well as the TV set. And some of what we'll talk about today in terms of our vision for the next 5 years and what we see going on in terms of unification of both infrastructure, as well as you'll see examples of this in the user interface and the way that consumers actually consume that content. We'll show you basically a little bit about how we're doing it, and we'll also have a customer that will be able to do that as well. What are we seeing in terms of trends? I think these trends are fairly obvious, and they're not as maybe dramatic as some of the pundits would say, but you definitely see a drop in what we look at as a traditional form of media consumption, right? Video to a TV set. And the thing that I find interesting is, sure, it's skewed towards the younger generation. If you look at the drop, the 18 to 34-year-olds is dropping the most. But it really is across the board, right? It's not subject to one specific age group, but this is true just across the board. Everyone is consuming content in different ways. And where do we see that showing up? It's many times in the area of subscription VOD. So if you look at, we're here at NAB, it's definitely a global event. I have some data here that happens to be, US, and it's fairly recent. But if you look at what's going on, more than 40% of US households now have some form of VOD subscription, and approaching 13% of them are doing multiple forms of this. And this is an important trend, and it's being driven really by the adoption of broadband. You see here in the pie chart, the 43% that have SVOD, but there's a lot of room to grow, right? The orange part here is 35% that have broadband, so they have the capability to get some type of subscription on-demand service, but they haven't quite done it yet. So this is still fairly early, and the result of these two factors of consumers maybe not consuming as much on a traditional television set and those internet subscribers subscribing to subscription VOD is driving fundamental shifts. But you're seeing a downward movement in traditional viewing and an upward, and it's almost equivalent, even just looking at Netflix. If you add in the other forms of subscription offerings and other internet video, it's substantially higher than that. But just Netflix alone is approximately equivalent to the drop that we're seeing overall in traditional viewing patterns. And when we look at the market, I think it's fairly clear that live content, broadcast, sports, and news is driven by the broadcasters. And on the other side, the on-demand content is being driven mostly by subscription. And when I talk about this, I'm definitely talking about professional-grade content, so I'm not necessarily talking about user-generated content. And we think that what's happening very, very clearly in the market right now is we're starting to see something that we call the unification of the experience, unified experiences. And this is what consumers want. And at IBC, if you remember, we launched an offering into the market called Elemental Delta. It really is about essentially fusing content and fusing the user experience. And we believe that the consumer experience is actually now going to drive the infrastructure to be unified as well. And so if you look at these separate offerings that clearly exist in the market, even within an IP app environment, really what's happening now is you're starting to see examples, and I think CNN Go is a very clear example of this, of taking content and blending it together on users' terms. So if you have the chance to look at this app, and this is essentially a TV everywhere type of application, you can see in one part of this app live content. and you can be in watching what is essentially the broadcast channel replayed into this app environment, and you can go in there at any time and scrub backwards. You can do catch up with that content. But surrounding it is the on-demand content. So this is an example of unifying this environment, right? You have clips and highlights that were basically backwards in time. It's what some people call a reverse EPG. So you're going back to 2 hours ago or 4 hours ago or 6 hours ago. And then down on the bottom, you have related content. That could be from a month or a week ago. And all this is really at the forefront of bringing together those experiences that are real time in the broadcast world, like a CNN channel, and fusing it with slices of the content that may be relevant to that particular content that they're watching on the live channel. We think that this is the way the world is going.
We are Elemental Technologies, a global supplier of software-defined video solutions. We help the world's leading media companies bring video to TVs, PCs, tablets, and mobile phones. With IP video reaching millions of viewers every day, Elemental accelerates the deployment of multi-screen services. Video processing software from Elemental delivers high-quality video. Flexible, scalable, high performance. Deployed with turnkey appliances, virtual machine instances, or cloud-based resources. Our technology drives the streaming video behind the world's largest live events, the highest profile content, and the most extensive broadcast networks. Whether live or on demand, our video solutions give consumers content on their terms. Our purpose is to perfect the media experience. When pay TV operators, content programmers, broadcasters, enterprise and government customers choose Elemental as a partner, they're selecting the very best in video expertise. Video on any screen, anytime, all at once. We are Elemental.